For over 20 years, the Fire Store has equipped first responders with the best in firefighting gear. Discover seasonal savings on the gear you trust and visit thefirestore.com to shop everything but the truck.
Fire Service Data and Tech Talk.
Hey, everybody, it's Eddie Buchanan with the Fire Service Data and Tech Talk podcast on fire engineering, coming at you through all of the social media platforms for fire engineering these days. This month, November, it's we're getting into fall, almost time to start growing beards and stuff. So, Blake, I'll be trying to catch you soon, man. This month, we're going to talk about get a data-focused podcast, right? So I'm excited to hear what our guests have to say. If you've not started, registration for FDIC is now open, so make sure that you've done that. And, you really got to jump on those classes and to get the housing straight and then to get into the classes that you want to get into. So once registration opens, you better get hopping, right? Because the good stuff will go quick. So make sure you do that. And then, keep following. We'll see you in Indianapolis in April. So we're looking forward to the show. But this month, I want to talk about AFESA. Now, what is AFESA? You may wonder. But I've got some representatives from the group. It's a newly formed association of data analysts. So it's a pretty exciting group. I can't wait to find out what they're doing, what the work looks like, and then, how can we all in the fire service start to benefit from that association? So with me today, I have Joanna Zibbell. Joanna, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
And tell us a little bit about where you're from.
I live in Boise, Idaho. I've been here for almost 20 years. My background in data analytics is I started at the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. I actually didn't go to school for this, so I fell in love with it, fell into it because of a need of the program that I was working in groundwater. And I decided, gosh, I'd really love to do this full time. And I was lucky enough to find a position at our public health lab about 2 months before COVID started. So you can imagine that was a really interesting time to be a data analyst. I was there for a couple of years, learned a ton, decided I wanted to keep advancing my career and saw this opportunity with the Boise Fire Department as a data analyst. And then now I manage our technology division. So software, hardware, data, it's been really exciting. The fire service is a really fun industry to be a part of. It's different. It's very collaborative than the other industries I've been in. That's my background.
How big is Boise Fire? Tell us about that a little bit, like stations.
Sure. Yeah, we have 19 stations, 18 that are functioning. We have about 300 firefighters. We're part of a mid-size fire department. So some of those big fire departments scare me a bit. I don't know quite how they function, but it's a real collaborative, high functioning group of people, and really they get a lot done. It's really exciting culture here.
Well, awesome. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then what's also is Blake Boyd. Blake is down not too far from me in Cary, North Carolina. Welcome to the show, Blake. Tell us about yourself, man.
Thanks. So, I started off my career in the fire service as a junior firefighter in the Apex volunteer fire department. And I became a volunteer, and I was fortunate enough to have a family that supported me and allowed me to go get all of my certifications as a volunteer. And then I was hired in the Cary Fire Department back in 2000. So I was a career suppression firefighter for many years, progressed through many of the ranks in the organization. And my interest prior to becoming a firefighter was a lot of things technology. So it's a passion I've had all my life. And fortunately, the agency that I worked for, Cary, had a need for someone to assist with analytics as part of our accreditation processes. So I was pulled offline many years ago to help with the analytic needs of the fire service. Did not go to school for this. I was 100% self-taught, much like Joanna. YouTube is a great resource for any aspiring analysts out there. I just progressed through the organization, and I was assigned up here at Fire Administration as a special assignment, and did a short stint as the department's community risk coordinator. And then right as NFPA 1022 was finalized, I was asked to write my own job description. So I had some input in how my job description was written, which was fascinating and Really awesome at the time because I had that resource there for me. So my job description models 1022 quite almost exactly. I think that's really setting the standard for how we hope this position will go in the future because I'm close to retirement. But yeah, I've been up here at the fire administration for almost 8 years now.
And how big is Cary Fire Department? It's like a suburb of Raleigh, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit smaller than Raleigh. So we have 9 stations. We have 252 full-time staff, and we run about 190,000 calls a year.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. 190,000 people live in Cary, and we run 14,000 calls a year.
Okay, I was like,
all right,
what?
That sounds good.
I was like, wait a second here.
That was going to take the conversation in a completely different direction.
Yeah, how?
I'm glad we don't run that many calls. That would be pretty bad, right?
So you mentioned 1022. I think if folks have not listened to, they're not familiar with that standard, what is that? What is that standard about, and how is it important to data?
It's the standard for fire and emergency services analytics. So it defines the JPRs for the analyst role in the organization. And I think the fascinating thing about it is that most people in the fire service, when they think of an analyst, they think of the data geek, right? All things tech. And anyone that has delved into the world of analytics for any period of time understands that there are many very different specific skill sets within that community. So a GIS analyst is a very different skill set than, say, a data modeler or a data engineer or even a business analyst. So we have people that are in the fire service right now that have the title of, say, business specialist. And they would not be traditionally looked at as an analyst, but I think they quite possibly are very much a necessary thing, and they firmly line up as an analyst community, just as important as a modeler or a GIS person. And then the standard also goes on to talk about managers of analysts, which is also super important because managing people that do this work is difficult if you don't come from a data background. And having some kind of standard to say these are the expectations for understanding data literacy is a big part of this job. So.
Well, it's when I retired, as I came up through the last 10 years before my retirement, right? We didn't really talk about data a whole lot. We had some dashboards. We talked about basic response times, but that was kind of it, So it's been interesting to watch the evolution over the last, 5-10 years. It's really starting to become more data focused, and I like to make the point that it's not just where the fire chiefs go to conferences and hear something about data. It's where do their bosses go to conferences and hear about data, right? So, the county administrators, the mayors, the council members, and all those things, they're talking about data at their conferences. So that's kind of driving a little bit of the evolution too. But anyway, I appreciate both of you coming on the show. Tremendous experience. I'm excited to see, where the conversation goes because you have that real world hands-on in the data experience, which is unique, and certainly specific to this show. So, our topic today is AFESA. So what is that? It's tell me about the association and its main mission. Joanna, why don't you start? Tell us, give us the overview of what the association does and its purpose.
Yeah. So I thought you might ask this, and I wanted to be prepared to tell you about our vision, mission, and values. But I didn't want to do it off the hip because our founders put a ton of effort into the words that we chose. So if you would be patient with me for a second, I'd
Please.
love to read you our vision, mission, and values, which will take not very long. So our vision is to be the champion for the profession of fire and emergency services analysts to drive individual growth, organizational excellence, and industry advancement. Our mission is to provide advocacy, education, innovation, and networking for the fire and emergency services analyst community, resulting in increased competency and opportunity for analysts, increased effectiveness in planning and operations for departments, and increased public trust for communities. And our values are, we chose these very carefully: belonging, collaboration, and integrity. And you can look up www.afesa.org to read these and our values in more detail. So that is, we chose that very carefully, and the people behind AFESA, which I can talk about, put a lot of thought and effort into that. So the AFESA story, which is I really enjoy telling, it starts with our chair, Jessica LeBlanc. She's a data analyst with Fairfax County, and she worked for the police department for 14 years as a crime analyst. And she came over to the Fairfax County Fire and Rescue about 7 years ago. And I wasn't aware that the International Association of Crime Analysts is a thing and is quite active. And so when she came over to fire, she's like, great, where are my people? Where's my association? And it really wasn't there. And anybody who's been to a fire conference, it's like there is always a data a lane or a whatever they call those, a breakout. But it's not the focus of the conference. It's not the focus of these lovely conferences that a lot of us attend. And so she started kind of talking to people in her community regionally. Last year was her second analyst symposium that she coordinated. So she's had incredible participation. So how I got to Jessica, which I'm in Boise, Idaho. So to meet Jessica in Fairfax County means that the fire service is a really collaborative and connected place, which is very true. So I met Blake through one of my colleagues who met him at a vendor conference. Come to find out that Blake was doing something quite well that we were struggling with. And so they connected us. And like I said, that's what I love about the fire industry is everybody is absolutely willing to help. So Blake connected me to Jessica. Part of the reason that he did so was because when I came over to the fire department, it was my first experience with SaaS. So I'm used to data on-prem, which means I have direct access to production data. There's a lot of good things with SaaS, but data access is not one of them. And so I was really struggling with, where's my data? Is this good data? And eventually our vendor turned off our data pipeline that we had this handshake agreement on, apparently, that was made years ago. So I was struggling. And I had met other data analysts on the West Coast, Oregon, Washington. And so I was like, we need to get together. We need to stop trying to solve these problems in silos. And so I started hosting about quarterly community of practice call where we were just talking about what we're dealing with, sharing solutions and stuff. And that's where Blake was like, you need to meet Jessica, because she was doing a similar thing on the East Coast. So by the time I met Jessica, the AFESA was pretty much fully baked. So I feel really, really grateful to have been a part of the amazing people that helped to launch it. So I do want to mention Wendy Kurotkin from Boulder Fire. She's our at-large governance committee member. Preet Bossi, who's the CEO of the Center for Public Safety Excellence. AFESA would not be possible without her, because CPSE has incubated us and supported us in that way. And then it wasn't just the governance committee who put together AFESA. There are about a dozen other trailblazers who helped put it together, including Matt Hins-Aldrich and Chief Frampton. I wanted to mention them. So it's a really fun story and very indicative of the fire service, I feel like, of people finding each other across the country, making connections, and trying to solve problems together. Blake, did I cover it? Okay.
Yeah. It goes without saying, anyone in the analyst community probably knows Matt, because Matt pretty much knows everyone. I really want to give lots of kudos to Matt and Chief Frampton, because they were instrumental in the creation of the association itself. And the impetus that drove it was this association for analysts by analysts, right? So because we set up the bylaws to ensure that the Analyst Association was wholly for the analyst community, free from vendor bias. It's for
Mhm.
us. There were rules put in place to ensure that the leadership of the association were actively serving as analysts. And that meant that Matt and Chief Frampton couldn't be in the leadership. So that's unfortunate because they were such a huge part of the association and the foundation of it. But oftentimes we have to take sidestep and backseat roles to help grow the organization to ensure that it's full of integrity. And that's the key part of what started the whole thing, was that we wanted something for us, much like how the Crime Analysts Association have something for them. So I would be remiss without pointing that out.
So the target audience, so you need to be a functioning data analyst by trade to be in the leadership role, but the association is open to anybody with that interest, I guess.
Yeah, so there are 3 levels of membership. You have full members, you have associate members, and student members. And to serve in some form of leadership capacity, you have to be in an analyst role. But there are opportunities to serve in the association if you're just an associate member. Like, you can serve on subcommittees as an associate member. But the key here is that we wanted the organization to be run by analysts.
Right. And that I've noticed just in the data world, there seems to be there's a couple of common lanes of how people get involved. It's like sometimes you'll see a chief officer who just, you're the one they're leaning on. You got it. Other duties is assigned. Figure this data thing out, right? So you have that. Then you have, sometimes in the larger departments, there might be somebody as you are, specifically assigned to that role. And then sometimes it's the guy on light duty who put up his shoulder, who is pretty good with some numbers. It seems to be a broad spectrum, but all people, I think, have a opportunity through the association, it sounds like.
Yeah, and even vendors can join AFESA as associate members. We're not excluding anyone, and in fact, we would welcome those that have other duties as assigned or vendors to join the association itself, because you're going to get a perspective and resources from the association itself that are going to be really hard to get anywhere else, because all of us together have multitudes of experiences with job duties, data platforms, challenges and problems that we've all solved, and all of us coming together. It's really amazing to see what everyone has come up with, and then hear about their stories.
So what do you think the big 3, Joanna, what do you think, if I was an analyst just learning about this opportunity, what would you say are the 3 big benefits of being a member of the association or getting involved?
Yeah, so we put a lot of thought as what value we're providing our members. One thing that we're working, well, first of all, this is community. So as you mentioned, a lot of fire departments, they're probably lucky to have a data analyst. They're really lucky to have 2 or more. And the truth of the matter is, you probably have more often departments where it's duties as assigned or a single analyst that's sort of on an island by themselves. So it's really nice to have that community to say, where do I go to ask if I'm doing this right or this problem that I have? So we do have a discussion forum that you can post questions, and our members are so awesome. There's no question on there now that hasn't been responded to, and so you have very passionate people who are right there ready to assist you and help you kind of get out of your off your island, out of your silo. We also have once a month we have a webinar, or what we like to call a solutions cafe. So where we either have a focus topic with a speaker and then discussion, or completely open to say, what are you working on, what problems, and kind of open it up to our members to ask and answer questions. So we've had a couple of those starting in July. So that's when we started opening membership, was July 1st. So those have been, that's my passion, is to have that platform for people. Because like I said, coming to Boise Fire was really isolating in terms of the data problems. And like I said, in the fire industry in general, and probably the other industries that have gone SaaS, there's real data foundation issues. So it's easy to write queries. easy to run reports, easy to build dashboards when you have your data. When you have some version of your data where you don't have your data at all and you're downloading it every day from your vendor UI into Excel spreadsheets, things become really frustrating. So we offer that community. We're also going to be providing additional opportunities for deliberate trainings. So think of like, we're trainings on SQL or other programming languages, how to do cool things in Power BI. So we'll have targeted trainings as well. And then we're trying to fill out our subcommittees right now. So we have our nominating, our membership, and our ethics subcommittees seated, but we also have education, outreach, and research. And so through those committees, we plan to have toolkits, and templates, stuff like that, sample job descriptions, how to best hire a data analyst, et cetera. So there's a lot to come once we get those subcommittees seated. Of course, NARIS is a big thing, right? So we don't want everybody reinventing the wheel with that either. So we really want to kind of come together and have like not one brain, lots of brains, to be able to spread out those resources and help answer those questions more quickly. And then hopefully at the end of the day, we're also providing some influence in the industry. So vendors can maybe look to us and say, like, what does the analyst need? A lot of times, for better or for worse, chiefs are the ones perhaps looking at new software, hardware, and it's really the data analyst at the end of the day who has to kind of deal with utilizing that data, making sense of it. And so kind of bringing the analysts into the conversation. And that's why vendors are welcome to join our association, so they can listen into our solutions cafes and listen to the problems that we're trying to solve so that they can develop more helpful solutions at the end of the day.
Outstanding. That's really beneficial to anybody involved in data, I think. Blake, what do you add? Is there anything that you see from your perspective that are like the key benefits from where you sit?
I mean, the advocacy is such a huge part of it because, right, wrong, or different, the analyst role in the fire service, in emergency service specifically, is not as, we'll say, well established in the community as, say, a crime analyst. And I think if Jessica was here, she would tell you that we love our crime analyst partners, but the fire service particularly is so much more complicated when it comes towards how do we effectively measure what we do. And advocacy for the profession itself, because it's a growing industry and it's all over the place. So you see jobs pop up in communities that they want an analyst, but their best next comparison is a crime analyst, and the pay often isn't really commensurate with the skill set. So we're trying to advocate for the profession, and you can see it starting to happen. Analyst jobs are popping up all over the country. And we're trying to make sure that, one, the job description is effective in identifying a person that would be successful in this career, and then also providing for a place for people that want to transition into this role, much like how I did, where you've got a suppression firefighter that wants to become an analyst. That transition is oftentimes very difficult. Probably equally as difficult as a formally trained analyst trying to come into the fire service. They each have their unique set of challenges. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, what do you think? You mentioned NARIS and some of the, we're starting to see data pop up more and more, starting to see analyst positions. What do you think the state of data is in the fire service right now? Like when you look across the spectrum, where do you see us? Like, where do we fit? Are we I guess we're just at the beginning maybe, or how do you, like, what's your, Joanna, what do you think? Like,
yeah.
How are we sitting right now? Are we good? We got a lot of work to do or what?
Well, I'll be interested to see what Blake thinks about. I just, my heart, it's a little bit soul crushing for a data analyst, depending on what department you're in, right? And who your record management system vendor is. And not even just record management system, but we have staffing, training data, workers' compensation data. And like I said, I came from an on-prem environment, which, right, versioning is very difficult in that it's a big deal. It's hard to go to the next version, and then you're sitting with bug fixes that have happened in future versions and he can't get there. But not having data in your data warehouse on-prem, it is very difficult. And so Neris is going to help that tremendously. It's going to unlock our data that was formerly locked in vendors, which oftentimes required you to pay to get that data back out. So Neris luckily will provide a free API to get your data back on-prem. So that is a huge foundational change, I think, in the fire service. We have to work towards the other data sources. So CAD data, staffing data, pre-planned data. And I think there's the importance of groups like AFESA and a focus on getting analysts together to have more of a singular voice is going to shift, I think, decision making in the fire service going forward, so that we don't get into contracts with vendors that say, that don't specifically call out that data ownership and data access. And so I think it really depends on what department and what your resources are. I think Blake has been able to. You correct me if I'm wrong, Blake, but I think regarding your vendor, I think you've been able to utilize like Snowflake, which is great for those who can afford it, but not every department can, or it's particularly departments that don't even have an analyst. I have a department here locally, and that's something that I'm very happy to do, is help other smaller or mid-sized fire departments in our area who don't have a data analyst, and we can share data solutions. But he was even trying to figure out, he couldn't easily figure out how many times his units were going out of district, So it's like, we're trying to ask very simple questions, and we're wasting a lot of time on answering those questions because that foundational piece is just different for everybody, and it's not fully where it should be, in my opinion. I will mention really quick that the U.S. Fire Administration has a working group. In the last year, they've been working on developing a data and technology maturity framework with 5 lanes: data, tech, IT, systems, process and governance, and people and culture, and then a crawl, walk, run maturity. So the goal of that working group, and FSMA play a part in this, is to put out a self-assessment tool for fire departments to say, like, where are you in terms of data and technology, and then where do you want to be, and how do you get there, and where's the community to help you get there, because not every fire department is going to be able to do that. They're not they're self-solving with the people that they have, and they can't always add personnel to their staff.
What do you think, Blake?
I'm so glad that Joanna mentioned the data and tech working group, because my perspective on where we're at right now it's so varied, because it depends. I think less on resources, and I think more on culture, because the fire service traditionally has looked at records as a thing that we just have to do, right? It's busy work. My boss tells me I have to do this in-first report. Let's just get it done as quickly as possible. And agencies that have gone through a self-assessment through various methods, accreditations, obviously the industry standard where we talk about what we do. ISO is another one that we have to go through often. But like the culture of data is so critical in organization, because if you don't have an understanding in the organization about why we're doing what we do and why we're collecting the data we have, and then having some kind of we'll say meaningful display of that information to our peers, the people that are on the fire trucks, our leaders that are serving our community, those that we report to. If there's not a buy-in to say this is important, then the data that we capture is going to be questionable. So a big thing that I'm really passionate about is quality control. And we have, through many years, and our organization had established quality control processes and people that are passionate about ensuring that the data that we collect is not only complete but accurate. So that makes my job as an analyst significantly easier, because we have good, clean, reliable data that we can make the informed decisions on. So one, I think that having that culture is the first step uh, to getting towards where we need to be. And Joanna is right. It's more than just incident data. It's staffing data. It's injury data. It's weather data. It's all these things. And I think that nearest is going to be the step to get us to where we need to be, because reconciling and combining all of that data together through infers, it was possible, but maybe more focused on outputs rather than outcomes. And I think that's the step that we need to work towards, is agencies to think about, why do we do what we do and what difference are we making? And that's a job that an analyst can easily help advocate for and show the people that care what it is that the fire service does.
Well, you both just said a whole lot, right? So the culture, I was at a Metro Fire Planners meeting back in September, and kind of the thing I took away from that group was there was a discussion of like a impending paradigm shift in the industry, right? Like, we've been doing things the same way for decades. And I think, it was like we couldn't yet define or articulate what that paradigm shift is, but it's probably in the data space, right? It's going to be that we're going to start to look at things differently through the data sources that we haven't had in the past. And one of my things I've mentioned on the show before is to give an example of the contrast of how like law enforcement has approached data. When I was on the job, in my command radio, I could hear the law enforcement officers' channels, right? So I could hear fire, EMS plus law enforcement, just situational awareness. And they did something called a PWT, park, walk, and talk. That's what it stood for. And they would mark it on the radio. They were just getting out of the car. That's all they were doing. They pulled up at the gas station. I'm going to do PWT, and they get out and go inside and chat a little bit or whatever. But they were catching that level of data. It wasn't that they just said it for, if there was a safety aspect to it. Hey, I'm out of the car, but also that's a data point. They captured that data point, and contrast that to what we teach our recruits about data collection. We have nothing really. I mean, if you look at the recruit school, I haven't looked at an outline lately, but last time I saw one, the data collection component of recruit school or basic firefighter training was like, 5-10 minutes? I mean, it was very small. Report writing. What kind of training did you get, Blake, when you came up through the fire training world?
None.
Zip.
No, it was the hand-me-down training. I like to call it the inbreeding of ineptitude. So you've got people that don't know what they're doing, teaching people what they don't know, and that's a large problem when you don't know what you don't know. So prioritizing data literacy, even at the entry level of fire service, and we've actually started to change this in our organization, where there is a small piece, hopefully it will grow in the future, but data collection, like you mentioned, park, walk, and talk, it's huge, because like you talk to the average person and you ask, what does a firefighter do? And they say, hey, you go and you put out fires, right? But like upwards of 60, 70, maybe even 80% of what we do is EMS in nature, has nothing to do with firefighting, right? And then there's all these other ancillary tasks that we do, like maintenance, hydrant servicing, inspections, pre-plans, physical fitness, meal prep, cleaning, all of these things that go into the day-to-day life of a firefighter, and they tell a story about what we're doing. But because we're so inefficient with how we capture that data, it makes it very difficult to do an analysis of what a firefighter does in the day-to-day life. And another one of our amazing our GC members, Winnie Crocken, as that was part of her EFO paper, was unit hour utilization and what does a unit do day to day. And it's you talk about where we're going, and the big word out there that everyone wants to talk about is AI. And I'm kind of like on AI, because I haven't really seen a compelling case for how AI is going to meaningfully impact the day-to-day lives of a firefighter, because at the end of the day, that's what I'm super passionate about, is trying to make our operational firefighters more effective at what they do. And I think that maybe AI, that might be an avenue to help assist the people with documentation, to help identify what is it, how much time do we spend deconning at the end of a structure fire, and why does that matter? Well, it matters because we have the number one killer of firefighters is cancer, and that's a stat that we can't track because no one tracks exposures very well. No one talks about how effectively did you decon your turnout gear. I think that this is where we need to go, is to better understand what we do and make it so the ones that are having to do the documentation aren't so encumbered with the volume of paperwork that they just don't want to do it. So
I'd written down automated capture while you guys were talking earlier. Like that's an area to look at, like, what do you think, Joanna? If I'm asking somebody to hit a button, I might be asking too much, but how do you see it?
Well,
Can we use technology?
I was going to add on to what Blake said real quick, is that the opportunity costs of not getting our data foundation secure is the fact that we can't spend time on QA/QC, right? We can't dedicate time there to make sure the data going in is good. And we can't spend time on training folks consistently, not just one time, at maybe a little bit of Recruit Academy, on data and tech, right? So reoccurring trainings. And then we can't fully embrace AI, because if we don't know that the data going in is good, if we don't fully understand our data landscape, then how can we fully embrace AI and trust? I mean, fire chiefs really want to have a bot that goes on top of our data that says, give me the number of times XYZ. And it's like, I want that, but we are wasting so much time from a data analyst position on rudimentary tasks because of the data landscape that exists today. So we're holding our data analysts back from improving their skill set. There's lots to learn and become better at in terms of all the different programming languages and different tools that are out there. But that's what we need to do collectively as an industry, is to take back ownership of our data, which NARIS is helping with a ton. In terms of AI, I agree completely that that AI is helping administrative tasks right now. We can feel confident in that. In terms of what AI can do to make it so that, so that help a Mayday situation or something really significant, improve our outcomes for the community and our firefighters, reduce report writing time. Maybe we're not there yet, but I do think that that's on the horizon. However, sometimes it's easy for chiefs to want to embrace that really cutting edge technology and kind of forgetting all of the importance of doing it strategically, to make sure that we're selecting sustainable technology that is interoperable and fits in our existing IT ecosystem. And so I think emphasizing that we all have to kind of work together from a fire department perspective, is data analysts need to be a part of that conversation, technology need to be a part of that conversation. So when we get to the point where we can start implementing robust AI solutions, they're going to be successful and fully adopted by firefighters, which you're right, change is hard. NARIS is going to be a change for folks. And yeah, you think something simple like just press this button every time you do X. It's like, it's not that easy. So I agree with you. I think AI is going to improve things, but we have to do the work so it can be as effective as possible.
I hear the term data governance a lot. It's like the foundational first step, of defining and articulating what is and what is not, and how do you validate it and get that baseline. Is that something that AFESA is going to be able to help with, you think? Like maybe some sample, example documents, or at least sharing information anyway.
Do you want to take that, Blake?
Sure. Yeah, I think governance, we're encroaching on my second favorite subject of all time, how fire analysis. But I think governance keys on the things about like what is it that we're doing here? Like you have to have the foundations to understand and have it defined to where things can be trusted. So one of the big problems, and we talk about vendors and solutions and AI, is that they give you a tool to help streamline um, day-to-day tasks with measuring what it is that we do. But anytime you have a chief come to you and ask you a very highly specific question that's not pre-built or canned in to the platform, those are the tasks that an analyst is going to have to solve. And if you have no framework in place to ensure that, one, are we collecting data responsibly? Are we doing it ethically? GDPR, I'm surprised it hasn't hit the United States yet, but I imagine it's going to be coming in the not too distant future. So collecting data, ensuring that we have a meaningful reason for the collection of data, and then how we manipulate and ensure that the data is accurate and usable. It's paramount. So yeah, governance is huge, and with that comes data literacy, and that needs to be done at all levels of the organization, chief all the way down to the firefighter.
And that's why
GDPR, what is
integrity.
that?
Yeah.
You're putting me on the spot, so I'm gonna Google it really quick so I can give you the exact name. It's the General Data Protection Regulation. It's an EU requirement for governments that collect data, and there has to be a defined purpose for why you collect that data. And if you're just collecting data to collect data, then you're not allowed to do that in the EU. You could be fined for that. It hasn't come to the United States yet, but you think about all the things that we'll say gets collected about you on a daily basis. Your cell phone, you're walking around. Imagine the amount of data that's being collected right now, like your location, words that you say. I'm sure we've all seen targeted ads pop up on Facebook. Data is such a huge part of business. I really think the fire service and government in general is going to have to come to a point where the data that we're collecting is ethically used to ensure that we're not doing things with it that we shouldn't be doing. I don't know if anyone's been involved in a HIPAA lawsuit or any kind of public records request in terms of this, but it's happening more and more frequent where we're getting requests for information about the data that we collect. And these things can have real world implications to our report authors in our fire service, that if you're doing a poor job of collecting this data or you're collecting inaccurate data, you could be held liable for that. So it's critical. It really needs to be a core foundation of what we teach our firefighters, much like the law enforcement community does. There's a lot of time spent in law enforcement about documentation.
It's come up a couple of times on the show, this question: are firefighters allergic to capturing data? Do they just don't want? Is it they just dislike it, or or maybe there's more to it? What are your, Joanna? You lead us off. What do you think? Do firefighters hate it, or is it just something else to it?
No, I think, you sit in a fire station, particularly a busy fire station, and you just see the amount of stuff they have to do on a daily basis, let alone what they have to do to stay up on their skill set for the things that might happen. I that feels overwhelming to me. And then add on to the fact that you have to know how to log in to this application and use this password, but this one is use your single sign-on, and then a duo push. Oh wait, your duo app isn't really set up optimally because that's hard, and so you're waiting for a code that's not coming to your phone and stuff. And so I have a ton of empathy for firefighters. I think most of them, we're lucky that we have a new generation of firefighters that are coming up that were born with a cell phone in their hand, and so I think the problems are going to be easier and easier in terms of adoption going forward. I have firefighters teach me stuff all the time, like the young ones. I didn't realize you could do this, and that. That's cool. I'm always learning. But for the career firefighters who've been there for 20, 30 years, like I totally believe that they're doing their best. They just have a ton on their plate. And I agree with Blake. Like when we talk about collecting data, let's have a purpose for it. And I think NARIS will help tremendously. I mean, that's one of the purposes of NARIS is you look at the number of fields that they're collecting, and it's far less than what NIFRS collected. So I think they just have a ton on their plate. The cool thing about firefighters is they're so multi-talented. A lot of them come from really diverse backgrounds. Look at Blake, right? He has a technology acumen. There we have lawyers and engineers and like former teachers or marketing analysts. Like there's an incredible skill set in the fire service. So I think there absolutely is the want and the understanding to do a good job. We just have to respect the fact that they don't have a ton of time for it. So yes, we should be embracing technology that helps reduce the amount of time it takes to write a report. That's auto-populating fields. That's integrating AI so we can use maybe radio traffic to pre-populate fields. All of our applications should be iOS capable or tablet based so that we can take things mobily and do as much work as we can, potentially out in the field. There's a lot we can do from a technology and data perspective so that we optimize their experience. And then, like I said, free up our own time so that we can spend time with them to educate them on, hey, these are the quality assurance things that I'm seeing, or every time I go to a fire station, regardless of why I'm there, I'm like, is everyone good? Do you need anything? And they're like, oh, my app isn't working. How do I log into this again? So making time so that we have time to go out there and have that one-on-one FaceTime, so that their brain, which is I am just amazed with everything that they need to know, and especially in an all hazards fire department, we can take away some of that brain load and make things much easier for them.
Okay. Blake, what do you think?
Yeah,
firefighters.
I like to simplify things, right? So I don't like people and processes when we can take them out. So I'm a really big advocate for engineering-based solutions. And I've made it probably one of the core missions that I do here at my own agency is that I try really hard to never ask our people to do anything more than they're already doing without taking something away. So if I can automate something to make their lives easier, that accomplishes two things. One, it reduces the workload on those that are having to document these things. And two, it's got built-in data accuracy and data quality in it. So people make mistakes, whether intentionally or unintentionally, but you could automate something, typically speaking, the automation, hopefully, captures accurate, reliable, consistent data, and you've just removed that workload for them to focus on things that are more intensive. So like decision fatigue is huge in the fire service, especially when you've got high call volume units that are running large volumes of calls, especially at night, and they've been making incremental, really small decisions all day long, and that adds up, right? It takes effort and energy to think about these things, and anytime you can take that workload off to let them focus on the things that matter, we should be doing that. I agree with Joanna. Simplifying the tech down to where you don't have to have a computer science degree to log in to access your RMS, that's huge. We just recently switched to iPads in our fire trucks, and half the stuff's automated on it. Our route, our on-scene times are all automated through our CAD, and that's just one less thing that our fire crews have to worry about, to where they can access their pre-incident plan information and have a plan for what they're going to do in the 5 minutes that they have to drive to the scene. So, yeah, I'm big on reducing small bits of information to let them to do the big stuff.
And that's been the theme I've noticed on the show is firefighters. It's not that they hate data collection; it's that they hate wasting time. They don't have much of it. So if you can show them value of whatever the task is to collect the data, and they see the value of it, they'll do a great job with it. It's just busy work, not so much great on the busy work. Well, I'm curious, what projects are you guys working on? Like, what's just for a quick snippet? I'm always curious. I don't know that data analysts always share Like, this is what's going on. This is what I'm doing. Everybody thinks, well, nobody cares. Actually, everything you do is cool. So, like, Joanna, what projects are like on the front burner for you?
Well, we've been spending the last couple of years actually pivoting our pre-plan solution to a enterprise solution here. So I'm always an advocate for moving expensive software solutions to an enterprise solution if at all possible. So departments who have Esri or Microsoft 365, if you have the capabilities to do so, that can free up a lot of funds and give you some autonomy over those solutions as well. And we've been also pivoting record management system vendors in preparation for Analyst, so that we saw that as a great opportunity to pivot. So if we're going to if we have to kind of force change to, which I fully support, but force change to our firefighters, we think it's a great opportunity just to change the platform altogether. So we're preparing for that big switch and trying to get people acquainted with that new UI, but also the new Analyst fields. And then the big thing for us is crosswalking NFIRS to Analyst. So in our data mart, we've been struggling, as I kind of alluded to get our record management system data on-prem. And so we'll be moving that over to a different server that's going to is more focused on having raw data instead of that. But that's part of the problem with our, at least at City of Boise with our data mart, is that it was curated data, but nobody really knew it wasn't easy to see what the transformations were to get to that point. And so everybody has a data mart. Boise Fire does, police, parks, and there's these really clean tables, and you don't realize that they're actually basically a view. And so we've been struggling to kind of unwind that and get more raw data, more transparent data, and transparency to our data analysts. So we'll be moving a lot of our data over to this new format. And we're working with Analyst right now to understand their API so we can be ready to land prod data once we go live in January. So once we get Analyst, we'll have our historical NFIRS data. What does crosswalking those data sets look like? Analyst is not NFIRS 2.0. It's a completely different schema with completely different choices for instance type, no more type codes. And so that's something that I hate to see every department do differently, and that's something with FESA that we want to really collaborate on to say, what does that look like to crosswalk? Is it going to be challenging? Is there going to be 100 different ways to do it, or is it going to be pretty straightforward for most folks? So really taking time to reinvest in our data mart and then kind of refocus our investment in software to see what we can kind of self-solve so we can free up funds for things that we can't do easily here.
Okay. Yeah, when I first heard of Analyst, that was one of my first questions was, how is this going to affect predictive analytics? Like, how do we cross backwards in the NFIRS to do any sort of predictive calculation out of? But I still say, even though to be challenging, the benefit's worth the pain, right? We got to go somewhere. Well, Blake, tell us what you got cooking, man.
Well, we're not new at ETLing and model building and report building here at Cary. So one of the things that's challenging is to find avenues to consistently move the agency forward, and how do we make what we do more accurate, more precise, just to keep progressing and becoming better as a fire department. And one of the things that I'm working on currently is that our assessment of our performance through our accreditation reporting is obviously done based off of categories and risk. And I think the simplified view of it is that every fire department typically has a critical task analysis. They say, these are the tasks that have to occur on the scene of a single family residential structure fire, right? So we have ventilation, safety, IC, fire attack, water supply, et cetera. And I think in the accreditation world, I dare say the vast majority, if not all agencies, look at those tasks and say, we have to have this many people on scene to accomplish those tasks. And they do running personnel counts, and they say when we get X number of people on scene, that's when our effective response force is in there. I think the problem with that type of analysis is there's no real measurement whether or not that the people on scene are capable of performing those tasks. So unit capability is a huge part of doing an assessment of what we are actually doing on the scene. So in a simplified view of that, if you just say, hey, I need 15 people on the scene of a call to meet these critical tasks, well, you could get 15 pickup trucks with people in them, and no fire is going to get put out in a pickup truck, right? So there's no true calculation of whether or not these people are capable of performing the task. So I'm looking at, as part of we're getting ready to replace our CAD also, is do an analysis of, one, is the effective response force actually the effective response force, and are these people that are on scene actually capable of performing these critical tasks that we say? And if they're not, then we have that effective response force. So we're going to try to wholesale reevaluate how we do this in combination with nearest, because nearest adds the ability to say, hey, you have more than one incident type. So that's the other problem, is that EMPER's rules were lowest common series number is the incident type. So if it's a structure fire, then it's a 100 series call, right? So it's a 111, right? There's no avenue in that documentation to say, well, was there a cardiac arrest on that scene when you pulled the victim out? That's a risk. Are there hazardous materials on the scene of that? Was there a structural collapse involved in these? All of these things equate to the fact that there are more often than not, multiple risks that are present on the scene of the incidents that we respond to. But the tools that we have in our EMPERs are very limited because we have one incident type. So changing our model to evaluate risk based off of all risks that are present on the scene, evaluate our service delivery. And what that ultimately means is it could help with our resource deployment to say, where are our trucks located? Are we effectively placing our units in the correct location to manage the risks that are present with that? That are experienced in the community with our risk assessment, and two, using all of that information about performance to do dynamic responses with our hopefully our new CAD to say, we have a response plan for a single family residential structure. Well, that single family residential structure is 800 square foot. Does it need the same response that, say, a 6,000 square foot house does? And EFD may or may not be effective at sussing that out. So dynamic response plans, along with more meaningful and accurate capturing of our ability to meet our effective response force on all risks present on the thing, is what I'm currently working on. So hopefully I can get that done.
Man, I'm writing a bunch of notes. Yeah. I'm a big fan of data beyond the air brake. I think we don't know a lot about what we don't know yet, right? We measure everything up until we get on scene, and then we cut off the clocks right as we start doing all the work. So
it's funny you mentioned that. So I think there's lots of opportunity because police officers do this also, right? As they're on the scene, they're doing things. Fire service captures these benchmarks, but are we effectively capturing? So stuff like, hey, incident command's established, water's on the fire, primary search complete, secondary search complete, ventilation started, extrication at patient. All of those, we'll say, benchmark statements. How do we go past the, hey, we're on scene, now we need to start really, because at the end of the day, the people that call 911, all they care about is, one, how long until the problem's fixed? And getting on scene is not the completion of the incident. And I think that's where the fire service needs to go, is do a wholesale evaluation of how effective are we at, one, getting the resources there. Sure, that's part of it. But actually fixing the problem, and that's the outcomes that we're trying to get to. How effective are we?
And NERIS has those fields.
They do.
But how can we help firefighters passively populate that information so they're not just guessing after the fact? There's more to come there. Yeah.
We're just about out of time. Where can people find out more about AFESA? What's the web address?
So it's www.afesa.org. Membership is $100, and hopefully we've shared the value, but we really want to grow our community. In the first 3 months, we've welcomed about 180 members, and we want to keep growing that. We also have a presence on LinkedIn, so check us out there. And yeah, we're very excited to keep growing our network.
Well, and just listening to this conversation, right? If this conversation resonates with you, then these are your people. You want to go seek out that connectivity and be a part of that group. And we could go on for half a day with this conversation because it's just so much to talk about. So you definitely want to be a part of that association. If you can swing it, certainly go seek them out. So Blake and Joanna, thank y'all so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Like I said, we might have to have a part 2 because there's so much to dig into. We'll do this again some more later down the calendar somewhere. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
And that's a wrap for this month's edition of the Fire Service Data and Tech Talk podcast on fire engineering. You can find us on all the social media outlets. Be sure to give us feedback. You can reach me at, I have a Facebook page, Fire Service Data and Tech Talk page on Facebook. You can catch me on X or Twitter. The handle is Data Tech Talk. And then you just hit me on LinkedIn, just under my name, Eddie Buchanan. So I appreciate you listening this month. We'll see you next month as we get ready to wrap up 2025. Everybody be safe.
For over 20 years, the Fire Store has equipped first responders with the best in firefighting gear. Discover seasonal savings on the gear you trust and visit thefirestore.com to shop everything but the